The dining room of Henry and Isabella's house was illuminated by the soft glow of candles and filled with the aroma of a delicious feast. The table was set for a special dinner, meticulously planned by Isabella. As the clock struck 7, family members began to arrive, filling the room with laughter and lively conversations. Henry, a successful businessman in his late 30s, greeted everyone with his usual charm. He was a tall and attractive man whose commanding presence inspired respect. His wife, Isabella, was the epitome of grace and elegance. In her early 30s, she had a radiant smile that could light up any room. Tonight, her smile seemed even brighter, and her eyes sparkled with a secret she was eager to share. As the guests settled in, Isabella moved around the room, ensuring everyone felt at ease. Laughter echoed off the walls as old stories were recounted and new memories were made. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation and happiness. When everyone was finally seated, Isabella stood up, gently tapping her glass to get everyone's attention. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Henry and I have some wonderful news to share." Henry looked at her, his heart swelling with pride and love. He had no idea what she was about to say, but he trusted Isabella completely. She had always been the heart and soul of their relationship, the one who brought joy and warmth to his life. Isabella took a deep breath, her eyes locked on Henry's. "I am pregnant," she announced, her voice trembling with happiness. "Henry and I are going to have a baby." The room erupted in applause and cheers of joy. Henry's parents, Charles and Eleanor, were the first to react, standing up to embrace their son and daughter-in-law. Isabella's parents were equally elated, their faces beaming with pride. Henry, however, felt a strange sensation in his chest. It was a mix of joy and confusion. He knew he should be over the moon with happiness, but a persistent doubt lingered in his mind. How was this possible? He had never shared his deepest secret with anyone, not even with Isabella. The secret he had carried since a devastating diagnosis in his early 20s, he was sterile. As the family continued to celebrate, Henry's smile remained fixed, but internally, his thoughts were in turmoil. He needed to talk to Isabella, to understand how this miracle had occurred. But tonight was not the time for such conversations. Tonight was for joy, for celebrating the life they were about to bring into the world. Isabella, sensing his unease, squeezed his hand reassuringly. "Are you happy?" she whispered. Henry nodded, forcing a smile. "Of course, darling. I am the happiest man in the world." But deep down, he knew the happiness he felt was mixed with growing concern. He watched Isabella as she moved among the guests, radiant and full of life. How could he question something that clearly made her so happy? Yet, he knew he could not let this doubt consume his heart. He needed to find a way to address it with care and delicacy. The evening continued with much joy and celebration. Food was served, and conversations flowed freely. Toasts were made, each one wishing health and happiness to the future baby and the expectant parents. Isabella was the center of attention, receiving congratulations and kind words from everyone present. Henry, on the other hand, tried to keep up appearances, but his mind was racing. After dinner, when the guests began to disperse, Henry and Isabella found themselves alone in the kitchen. Isabella was washing some dishes when Henry approached from behind, wrapping her in a tender embrace. "Isabella, can we talk?" he asked softly. She turned around, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Of course, Henry. What is it?" He hesitated for a moment, searching for the right words. "I am very happy about the baby news, but there is something I need to understand. Something that is worrying me." Isabella frowned, concern evident in her eyes. "What is it, Henry? You know you can tell me anything." Henry took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Isabella, I have never told you this before, but years ago, I was diagnosed with infertility. They told me I couldn't have children." Isabella's eyes widened with surprise and confusion. But, Henry, that doesn't make sense. I am pregnant. The doctor confirmed it. He held her hands, looking into her eyes. I know, Isabella. And that is why I am so confused. I need to understand how this is possible. Isabella pulled her hands back, crossing her arms defensively. Are you accusing me of something, Henry? Because if you are, I don't know what to say. I have never been unfaithful to you. Henry shook his head quickly. No, Isabella, I am not accusing you. I just need answers. We need to understand this together. She sighed, her stance softening a bit. I am confused too, Henry. But we need to trust each other. Maybe there is a medical explanation that we do not know. He nodded, knowing she was right. Let's see a specialist then. Let's do all the necessary tests to understand what is happening. Isabella agreed, though the worry was still etched on her face. Yes, Henry. Let's do this together. I love you and I do not want this doubt to destroy what we have. Henry pulled her into a tight embrace, feeling the weight of his worries lift slightly. I love you too, Isabella. And we will figure this out together. In the days that followed, Henry and Isabella scheduled an appointment with a renowned fertility specialist. As they anxiously awaited the tests and results, the tension between them was palpable. Each day seemed to drag on, filled with silent fears and uncertainties. Isabella continued to plan for the future, still hopeful and full of love, while Henry struggled to keep hope alive in his heart. The appointment finally arrived, and Dr. Jonathan Blake greeted them with a welcoming smile. So, how can I help you today? He asked, flipping through Henry's medical records. Henry looked at Isabella before beginning to explain. Doctor, my wife is pregnant, but I was diagnosed with infertility years ago. We're trying to understand how this is possible. Dr. Blake nodded, understanding the complexity of the situation. Well, infertility can be a complicated condition. Sometimes, diagnoses can change or be misinterpreted. We'll conduct a series of tests to get a clearer picture. The tests were carried out, and the following days were filled with growing anxiety. Henry and Isabella tried to support each other, but the tension was undeniable. Isabella sought comfort in preparing for the baby, while Henry focused on his work, trying to distract himself from the constant worries. Finally, the day of the results arrived. Sitting in Dr. Blake's office, Henry and Isabella held hands, anxiously awaiting answers. The doctor entered with a serious expression and sat down in front of them. Well, I have the results, he began, looking directly at Henry. And there are some things we need to discuss. Henry felt his heart race. What did you find out, doctor? Dr. Blake took a deep breath before continuing. The tests confirmed your infertility, Henry. There's no indication that you could have conceived a child. However, we found something interesting in your tests. A rare hormone associated with fertility treatments. Isabella and Henry looked at each other, confused. But I never underwent any fertility treatments, said Henry, his voice laden with incredulity. Dr. Blake nodded. I understand. That's why this is so intriguing. This hormone could only be present if you had received some type of treatment. Isabella shook her head, stunned. This doesn't make sense. How could this have happened? Henry looked at her, his mind working frantically to understand. There's only one person who could have access to me without my knowledge. Isabella, do you have any idea how this happened? Isabella remained silent for a moment, her face a mask of confusion and fear. Henry, I swear I don't know. I would never do something like this without telling you. Dr. Blake observed the interaction between them, understanding the tension. We need to investigate this further. There might be an explanation we haven't considered yet. The important thing now is to work together to uncover the truth. Henry nodded, although his mind was full of unanswered questions. Yes, doctor. Let's figure this out together. As they left the office, Henry and Isabella felt closer despite the uncertainties. They knew the road ahead would be challenging, but they were determined to face any obstacles together. With the love and trust they shared, they were ready to unravel the mystery of their miraculous pregnancy and build a bright future for the new life on the way. The days following their consultation with Dr. Jonathan Blake were tense and filled with uncertainties for Henry and Isabella. The idea that something was happening behind the scenes of their seemingly perfect lives was unsettling. Henry was determined to uncover the truth but also wanted to protect Isabella from any unnecessary pain. Isabella, in turn, tried to maintain an appearance of normality, focusing on preparations for the baby's arrival. She spent hours choosing clothes and decorating the future child's room, trying to push away the worries haunting her mind. However, Henry's unease was evident, and she knew that sooner or later, they would have to face the truth. One night, after an especially exhausting day at work, Henry came home and found Isabella in the living room, flipping through a catalog of furniture for the baby's room. He sat next to her, firmly holding her hands. "We need to talk, Isabella," he said, his voice grave and determined. She looked at him, sensing the seriousness in his tone. "What is it, Henry? What are you thinking?" He took a deep breath, carefully choosing his words. "I've been thinking a lot about what Dr. Blake said. We need to investigate further how this pregnancy is possible. I don't want this to create a rift between us." Isabella nodded, her face softening with understanding. "I also want to understand, Henry. But where do we start?" Henry pondered for a moment before responding. "Maybe we should talk to someone who knows our medical history thoroughly. Someone who might have information about fertility treatments or anything like that." Isabella furrowed her brow, trying to remember something relevant. "It could be that Dr. Martin, my gynecologist, has some clue. He has been following me from the beginning and might know something we don't." The next morning, Henry and Isabella scheduled an appointment with Dr. Martin. Sitting in the waiting room, the couple supported each other, drawing strength from each other's presence. When they were finally called, Dr. Martin greeted them with a welcoming smile. "Isabella, Henry, it's a pleasure to see you," the doctor said, shaking hands with both. "How can I help you today?" Isabella took the initiative, briefly explaining the situation. "Dr. Martin, we recently discovered that I am pregnant, but there's a concerning issue. Henry was diagnosed with infertility years ago, and we're trying to understand how this pregnancy is possible." Dr. Martin frowned, clearly intrigued. "I understand. Let me check your medical records. Maybe there's something that can help us." As the doctor examined the records, Henry and Isabella waited in silence, their hands clasped together. After a few minutes, Dr. Martin looked at them with a thoughtful expression. "There's one thing that stands out to me," he began. "Isabella, you underwent hormone treatment a few years ago, right? To regulate your menstrual cycle." Isabella nodded, vaguely remembering the treatment. "Yes, I remember that. But what does that have to do with the current situation?" Dr. Martin continued, carefully choosing his words. "The hormone treatment you received is known, in rare cases, to influence male fertility, especially if there is indirect exposure. It's possible that Henry was exposed to the hormones in some way." Henry and Isabella looked at each other, trying to grasp the implication of the doctor's words. "But how could that happen?" Henry asked, confused. Dr. Martin gave a small smile, trying to reassure them. "There are many ways hormones can be transferred, especially between intimate partners. It could have been a combination of factors that resulted in an unexpected pregnancy." Isabella sighed with relief, though still somewhat skeptical. "So, this means that the hormone treatment I underwent might have helped Henry regain his fertility?" Dr. Martin nodded. "It's a possibility. Although rare, it's not impossible. I would recommend continuing with tests and consultations to monitor both of your health and ensure everything is fine with the pregnancy." When they left the doctor's office, Henry and Isabella felt a bit more at ease, but there was still a long road ahead. They decided to focus on the present and celebrate the news of the baby on the way, leaving the doubts and uncertainties to be resolved in due time. In the following months, Isabella's belly began to grow, and the news of the baby brought a new light into their lives. The love between them seemed stronger than ever, and each day was a new opportunity to strengthen their bonds and face uncertainties together. Henry, still curious about the effects of the hormonal treatment, continued his research, talking to specialists and reading about similar cases. He wanted to be prepared for any eventuality, ensuring that his family was safe and happy. Finally, when the baby was born, Henry and Isabella felt that all the challenges and uncertainties had been worth it. Holding their child in his arms, Henry realized that, regardless of the circumstances, the love and trust he and Isabella shared were the true forces that kept them united. The journey of discovery and understanding had strengthened their bond, and looking to the future, Henry knew he would face any challenge by Isabella's side, always with the same love and dedication that had guided them so far. The birth of the baby brought a wave of happiness and a new routine for Henry and Isabella. The months passed quickly, filled with sleepless nights, laughter, and the little milestones of the baby's development. However, the question of the miraculous conception still lingered in the back of Henry's mind. He wanted to solve this mystery completely, to move forward without any doubt. While Henry busied himself with daily tasks and work, Isabella became increasingly involved with motherhood. She loved every moment with the baby and seemed to radiate happiness. However, Henry noticed that, occasionally, Isabella seemed distant, as if lost in thought. Every time he caught her staring into space, Henry felt a chill run down his spine. He wondered if she was hiding something, and the doubt gnawed at his peace of mind. One night, after putting the baby to sleep, Henry decided it was time to have a serious conversation with Isabella. He needed answers and wanted to ensure there were no more secrets between them. "Isabella, can we talk?" he asked, sitting next to her on the couch. The tension in the air was palpable. She looked at him, noticing the seriousness in his eyes. "Of course, Henry. What's on your mind?" Henry took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "I've been thinking a lot about how our pregnancy happened. And, although Dr. Martin gave a plausible explanation, I still feel there's something we don't know." Isabella looked away for a moment, making Henry's heart beat faster. He knew there was something she was hiding. "Isabella," he said softly, holding her hands. "If there's something you haven't told me, please say it now. We need to be completely honest with each other." She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath before opening them again, now filled with tears. "Henry, I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to keep secrets from you." He felt a tightening in his chest but remained calm. "Then please tell me. What happened?" Isabella wiped away the tears before beginning to speak. "Do you remember the hormonal treatment I did years ago? Well, I never told you the whole truth about it. I was desperate to have a baby. When I learned about your infertility, I looked for alternatives and ended up finding a specialist who was developing an experimental treatment." Henry frowned, surprised. "Experimental treatment? Why didn't you ever tell me about this?" Isabella gripped his hands tightly, her voice trembling. "Because I knew you wouldn't agree to something so uncertain. I made the decision alone, Henry, and underwent the treatment without telling you. It was a risk, but I was willing to do anything for us to have a child." Henry felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, he understood Isabella's desperate desire for a child. On the other, he felt betrayed by the fact that she had hidden something so important. "And the treatment worked?" he asked, trying to process the information. Isabella nodded. "Yes, it worked. But I never knew the effects could extend to you too. I thought it was just something that would affect my fertility." Henry took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I understand, Isabella. I understand why you did what you did. But please, never hide something like this from me again. We need to be a team, always." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I promise, Henry. I will never keep secrets from you again." They embraced, feeling a mix of relief and the pain of revelation. Although there was much to process, Henry knew that the love between them was strong enough to overcome any obstacle. In the days that followed, Henry and Isabella focused on strengthening their relationship, basing it on renewed honesty and trust. They sought out the specialist who had administered Isabella's treatment to better understand the effects and ensure there would be no more surprises in the future. The specialist, Dr. Matthews, was receptive and explained the details of the experimental treatment. He confirmed that, although rare, the hormones could have influenced Henry's fertility, resulting in the baby's conception. He also assured them that there were no known side effects and that the couple didn't need to worry about the child's future health. With this new understanding, Henry and Isabella began to plan their future with confidence. They knew there would still be challenges, but they were ready to face them together, with the love and sincerity that united them. Time passed, and the baby grew healthy and happy, bringing indescribable joy to their lives. Henry and Isabella learned that, despite the secrets and difficulties, the strength of their relationship lay in their ability to communicate and support each other. As they watched their child take his first steps, Henry and Isabella exchanged a look full of love and understanding. They knew that, regardless of what the future held, they were ready to face anything together, with a love that only grew stronger with time. As the months went by, Henry and Isabella adjusted to their new life with the baby. Sleepless nights began to become more manageable, and the baby grew healthy and happy. They created a solid routine where each moment together seemed to reinforce the bonds that united them. However, even with Isabella's revelation about the experimental treatment, there was a new sense of vulnerability between them. Both knew that trust was fundamental and that, for their relationship to flourish, they needed to continue being open and honest. One afternoon, while Isabella was in the park with the baby, Henry received an unexpected call at work. It was from Dr. Matthews. He hesitated to answer, fearing it might be some bad news about Isabella's treatment. However, curiosity and the need to protect his family won out. "Dr. Matthews, how are you?" Henry asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Henry, I have some important news about the experimental treatment Isabella underwent. There are new studies and data I would like to share with you and Isabella as soon as possible." Henry's heart raced. "Of course, Dr. Matthews. Can we schedule an appointment for this week?" "Yes, the sooner the better. I'll fit you into my schedule for tomorrow afternoon." Hanging up the phone, Henry felt a mix of anxiety and relief. He knew he needed to tell Isabella immediately, but he also feared how she would react to this new twist. When Isabella returned from the park, he greeted her with a comforting smile, though inside he was worried. "Isabella," Dr. Matthews called. "He has some updates about your treatment. We scheduled an appointment for tomorrow afternoon." Isabella paused for a moment, her smile faltering. "Updates? Does that mean, is something wrong?" Henry took her hands, conveying the strength they both needed. "We don't know yet. We'll find out together tomorrow. We're in this together, remember?" She nodded, trying to push away her worry. "Yes, together." The next day, in Dr. Matthews' office, the tension was palpable. Sitting across from the doctor, Henry and Isabella waited as he reviewed the recent documents and tests. "Henry, Isabella, thank you for coming on such short notice. There is something important we need to discuss. The latest studies on the experimental treatment indicate that there is a small possibility of late side effects, for both the mother and the father." Isabella squeezed Henry's hand tightly, feeling the weight of the doctor's words. "Side effects? Like what?" Dr. Matthews adjusted his glasses and continued. "Some patients have reported significant hormonal changes and, in rare cases, more serious health issues. However, there is no concrete evidence that this will happen to you. Still, I want to monitor you closely over the next few months." Henry felt a wave of protectiveness and determination. "We will do whatever it takes to ensure our health and that of our baby. We will follow your guidelines, Dr. Matthews." Isabella, though worried, felt relieved by Henry's firm attitude. "Yes, we are willing to do anything." With new guidelines and tests scheduled, Henry and Isabella left Dr. Matthews' office with a mixed feeling of apprehension and hope. They knew the road ahead might be challenging, but they were determined to face it together. In the following weeks, Henry and Isabella underwent a series of tests and consultations. Dr. Matthews kept a close eye on any signs of complications, while the couple tried to maintain as normal a life as possible. They sought to spend more time together, enjoying small moments of happiness and strengthening their family bond. One night, as they lay in bed, Henry felt it was the right time to have a conversation he had long wanted to have with Isabella. "Isabella, I've been thinking. Maybe we should plan a trip, something to take us out of our routine and give us some time to breathe and relax." She looked at him, surprised. "A trip? Do you think it's the right time?" Henry smiled, caressing her face. "Yes, I think we need it. A quiet place where we can reconnect and enjoy each other's company without the daily worries." After a few weeks of planning, they decided to travel to a secluded country house surrounded by nature. The idea of being away from everything and everyone seemed perfect. The trip itself was a balm for their souls. The fresh air, the sound of birds, and the tranquility of the countryside allowed them both to relax and reconnect in a way they hadn't for a long time. During a sunset walk, Henry stopped and pulled Isabella closer. "Isabella, I know we've been through a lot in the past few months. And I know there's much more ahead. But I want you to know that I'm here for you, for us. Always." She smiled, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. "Henry, I'm here for you too. No matter what happens, we will face everything together." That night, under the stars, they shared their hopes and dreams for the future. The conversation strengthened them, reaffirming the commitment they had to each other. They knew that, regardless of the challenges they might face, they were prepared to face them together, with love and determination. When they returned home, they felt revitalized and ready for anything. They continued their consultations and tests with Dr. Matthews, always with the same determination to ensure the health and well-being of their family. And as the months passed, Henry and Isabella realized that, despite the uncertainties, the love they shared was the most powerful force of all.